Hello, Impact Makers. Welcome to Brands of Impact, the podcast that dives deep into the world of successful businesses and the minds that create them. Today, we're talking to a business leader who knows a thing or two about success. Having built a suite of multi-million-dollar businesses, his story is one of tenacity, resilience, and sheer willpower, a testament to what's possible in the world of business. Don't miss this opportunity to learn from an eight-figure successful story.
I've been in lots of different businesses over my career. I was a math major in school and went into actuarial science. So that's where I started out working at insurance companies. Then I went from there to being self-employed. So got into the education space for actuaries to help them pass the exams, did some live seminars. Then it migrated into online seminars as those took off. So now it's all online training that we do for actuaries. Done many consulting endeavors, some related to actuarial science, some not. And then most recently involved with a concrete mixer called Mud Mixer. Definitely out of my element at first because I had never worked on a physical product before. So that was a learning curve for sure. And then one piece to the puzzle that has always baffled me was the marketing. And so that's why I was super excited to get linked up with you, Jeremy, that you could help us on that, kind of demystify the marketing world for me, because for many years, marketing was just not understood, that you would throw money at it, but then you had no idea. Is it working? Is it not working? You just didn't know. But now it's way more analytical, which is much more appealing for an actuary to understand the numbers. So that's been good.
Yeah, 100%, especially since you deal with numbers on a regular basis. So the fact
Right.
that, hey, now I have marketing it was such a tedious task, but now I can see it analytically, and wow, marketing is an analytical game as well, which is very
Yep.
much easier to see the influence, essentially.
Yep. Very much so.
That's awesome. And I kind of want to hear your story, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people that would see this would also find a lot of value. So, how did you start up essentially? Like, you guys took essentially two concepts, right? Because we have Red Dog as well.
Right.
Like, how was that starting point for you and you guys going into that visionary state of, okay, we have this great idea, and many people these days have great ideas, but no one really takes action, right? And that's kind of the biggest gap between people who are pushing for success and those that just have this idea. For you guys look like you have this track record of continuously executing. So what's that process like for you?
Yeah. You're right that lots of people have ideas, but then it's really hard to turn ideas into businesses. And so I'm actually a person that does not come up with ideas. So I have learned to surround myself with people that do have business ideas, and then I can take those and try to make it actually turn into a business. So for both the businesses that are two businesses I'm in now, one with the Red Dog Tornado Shelters and one with the Mud Mixer, the inventor of those is Oscar Scott. So it's the same person. So he's been a good friend of mine for almost 20 years. And we've done business together, but he is just an idea machine. So he can come up with these ideas that very few people would have ever even thought of. But then even after you have the idea, there is a lot of work left. So the idea is one thing, which is extremely valuable. But then you have to figure out, okay, how do I turn that idea into a business? And that's really what my forte is understanding, okay, how can we start with that idea? So for example, with the Mud Mixer, we had the idea. Well, then before we knew if it was a good idea, we were going to spend a year or two actually going through the prototype stage. So we had to be patient. So for the first 2.5 years, we just designed different mud mixers. We tried them out, tweaked it a little bit, went back to the drawing board. We knew that we had to be patient and not rush it to market, because we thought, hey, you could hurry and get this out to the market, something that's half baked, but then you're going to start to get a reputation, and you're going to say, hey, they said it was going to do this, but it doesn't. So we made the commitment early on that we're not going to start selling it until we're confident that it's a good product. So we really did wait 2.5 years. Then we started out with the slow sales literally door to door. So the guys went to Dallas, knocked on doors of rental companies, and wheeled in the mud mixer. And they had never seen anything like it. And that raises a lot of skepticism in people that, hey, I've never seen this. Why would I want to buy it? So it took some real face-to-face sales efforts to convince anybody to want to try it. But then once they would try it, then they thought, hey, this is awesome. It works great. And we were confident that it worked great. But then we went through challenges with the manufacturing that even if you have the first prototype done, that doesn't mean all of them are going to turn out that way. So we definitely had batches early on in the manufacturing that, hey, these weren't right. So they were breaking. So we were very fortunate that we started out slow. If we had made 1,000 to begin with, then we would have had 1,000 bad mud mixers. So we started out in the hundreds and tested them out and refined the process. And so even though the tendency is to grow really fast at the beginning, you're usually better off if you slow down. Just go ahead and be patient, get it out in the market, let people use it. Customers have great ideas. They will tell you, hey, here's something you can do better. So you can learn a lot from them. You kind of fall in love with your own idea when you're creating something. It's always good to get independent secondary opinions that said, yeah, this idea wasn't so good, or here's what you need to change to make it useful for me. So we listen to customers. We're growing slowly, but still we're having success. And, we celebrated every mud mixer we sold because that was a win for the team that we could sell it. So we didn't really, I'd say, turn on the marketing until probably a year and a half after we started sales. So it was almost 4 years after we got the idea. So we spent about 2.5 years in the prototype stage, a year and a half of, I would say, kind of slow sales with limited marketing. Then we turned on the marketing, and that was actually the right time because at that point we were confident that we know how this works. We know how to manufacture them. And so we were ready to grow faster. Now we've grown a lot faster than we thought we would the last 6 months, but we were still ready for it. We're having to catch up on manufacturing, but that's just a small blip. But we were confident that the machine was going to work as advertised. So we would have been in a world of hurt if we had started advertising right when we manufactured our first lot of mud mixers. You just got to be patient, and that's hard because the first 2.5 years in the business, there's no money coming in because you're just prototyping and testing. And then the next year and a half, it's kind of slow money coming in. And so you're thinking, gosh, I wish I could make more so I could recover what I spent, the first 2.5 years. But you just got to be patient and let it play out. And that's usually the best way to win in the long run.
100%. And, I do a lot of reading on like business books and different models and strategies. One thing that I even do with my business too is like, I'm in it for the long run. And I think people are in this fancy of, hey, like I expect things right away. But the amount of like discipline, the amount of success that we can create in the long run playing a long game, because we know that, hey, if I just do what I got to do today and then do what I got to do tomorrow, and then that compound, I think there's a lot of greatness that comes from that. Now, from you, when you were going through that first period, those 2 years, what was the mindset like from year 1 to year 2? Because I can only imagine, you said there was, in the beginning phase, you guys had a lot of error units, right? And that costs money at the same time, right? And validating and seeing what unit and prototype was the final blueprint. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I was fortunate that I was starting this business, I'd say, after 30 years of business experience. So it helps to be older sometimes. So I've been through this cycle. And so I knew going into it, hey, this is going to take a long time and it's going to take quite a bit of money. So I was already prepared for that. So it wasn't like it was a surprise. I think if I had done this in my youth, I would have been surprised all along the way. I would have thought, man, this is taking too long, or wow, it's costing too much money. But I had estimated fairly well at the beginning about how long it was going to take and about how much money it was going to cost. So it was pretty good. And I also knew each step of the way, you could come up with something that says, hey, this is not a good business. And that was okay. So every time we were learning new information, we would then have to assess, does that mean that we should get out? Or does that mean that, hey, it's time to push through? Because sometimes it is time to just admit that, hey, this business just isn't going to work and we got to move on to something else. But other times you want to push through that dip because you know that, hey, if you can push through it, then you're going to come up on the other side. So there was a time period in there where we were just prototyping and we just could not get it to mix concrete right. So we were trying all sorts of things and there's lots of variables. And so I did wonder that, hey, maybe we're never going to be able to get it to mix concrete right, because nobody else had ever created a machine like this that mixed concrete. So we didn't know if it was possible or not. We thought it was, but we didn't know for a fact it was. So that was the doubt. But once we created the first prototype that actually worked, then I was confident that we could actually manufacture it. Now I knew that was going to take some time to mass manufacture it correctly, but I had no doubt that we could eventually get there. But then I still wondered in my mind, could we sell any? Because that had not happened yet. And it's really easy to ask people, hey, if we had this, would you buy it? And they'll say yes, but they're not giving you their credit card and they're not writing you a check. So that's not near as meaningful as, okay, yeah, I'll buy it and here's the money for it. So we weren't sure what the market potential was. Could we sell a lot of them or a little of them? But we had heard from enough people that said, hey, we think this might work. And now we're confident we can actually manufacture it. So once we got past that tipping point, we actually created a prototype that worked. Then my confidence level really shot up. That said, okay, now we're at this juncture. Now it's just a matter of time that we can get this to work. But prior to that, there was some uncertainty. Is it even going to work or not?
Yeah, that's just super interesting too, because even with the prototype, like you're finally getting it, because if you look at the market, right, there is like your competitors, but like when I was coming into the picture, I was looking at the market. I'm like, the craziest part about this product is there's actually no competition.
No, there wasn't, because concrete has not been what you call an innovative industry in terms of, this side of it, in terms of how you mix it. Those barrel mixers have been around for a long time. And on a larger scale, they have all sorts of different machines that mix concrete. So we found this niche market that pre-bagged concrete had been around for a long time, but they really hadn't changed the way they mix it, whether it's in a wheelbarrow with a shovel or with a barrel mixer. That had just been the same. So we really had this idea, instead of mixing it in big batches and then using it, can you create something that just continuously mixes it so it's just a ready mix right when you need it? But it was very challenging to figure out how to get it mixed properly in a very short period of time. Because you really only have the time that it starts in the chute until it comes out the end of the chute, and then it has to be mixed appropriately. So that was our biggest challenge in making sure you get it mixed right there. But you're right, there really isn't competition for what we're doing. I mean, there's competition in the sense that there's other ways to mix concrete, but we didn't jump into a world where there's lots of mud mixers already out there. We just had a new one.
Yeah, it's superiorly unique. And when you guys were like kind of drafting up the concept and you got this from Oscar, for example, like how was that thought process? Like, okay, this is an innovative product. No one really has this. And like you just said, is a niche that's very underutilized. There's no innovation happening. So when you guys were going into it, how was that process for you when, well, yeah, makes complete sense because one, no one's innovating, no one's making it easier, and this solves the actual problem, right? Yeah. What's that process?
Yeah, that was different. And especially for me in this particular business, I knew nothing about concrete. So I had no reference points to draw upon. I had mixed some pre-bagged concrete before just on a limited basis. So, but I was not the one to ask, is it a good idea or not? So I definitely reached out to several people that were in this world and could show them the general idea. In fact, I remember when we first got the business, we were having a guy do some work at our house. And he was actually doing a little patio for us. And I thought, okay, this is what it could be used for. So I remember sitting on my front porch showing him a video of this early rendition of it and saying, hey, do you think this would be useful? We had a little trouble communicating because he was a Spanish speaker and I was English. And it was hard. And he thought, hey, this is good. But he wanted me to give it to him right then. So it was very hard for me to explain to him that, no, this is just an idea. Yeah, I don't have it yet. But that gave me some confidence that, hey, this was somebody in the industry that was saying, yeah, I think that's a good idea. I would like one. But then I had to tell him I can't. And then he would say, I'd buy one. But I said, I don't have one. So I can't sell it to you.
Technically your first sale.
It was, yeah, first sale was something I didn't have. But so I did have to reach out to others to figure out, do we think this is a potential good idea or not? But even if enough people tell you it's a good idea, it still doesn't mean it's a good idea. You just got to try it. We knew that going into it, that we think it's a good idea. I talked to others and they said, I don't think it's going to work. I don't think it's a good idea. Then you get into, okay, well, what price would, somebody be willing to pay for it? And at that time, we had no idea how much it was even going to cost us to make it. But we had to just take a gut feeling that, okay, we think if it does it right, then we think people would be willing to pay a price that's actually going to work in the business, given how much we have to pay for it.
It's interesting because how you're leveraging, well, one, you have a network that you reached out to, but also interesting enough, like, yeah, you get the naysayers like, hey, this is not a good idea. Right. But it's still fighting that internal battle. Well, I want to take a chance on this.
Yep. But it's important to listen to the naysayers. I mean, it's tempting to just go ask people that are going to be nice to you and tell you that it's a good idea. But it's important to talk to others that say, hey, I don't think this is going to work. Early on, Mark, our head sales guy, went out to the world of concrete, and I can't even remember what year it was. It might have been in 2019. But it was well before we had a product. And he was out there just walking around trying to figure out, hey, would this work or not? Maybe he had that really old video of, a crude rendition of it. And he showed it to a few people saying, hey, do you think this would be worth it? Not that we had made it or not. So that was some reconnaissance we could do in a venue that had lots of potential people that'd be interested. Then we went back there in 2020, and at that point, we did have a prototype. It wasn't finalized yet, but then we could start showing that to people. But again, we had nothing to sell. So we were just showing it to them saying, hey, do you think this has merit or not? So we were collecting more feedback, and we got some good feedback, people telling us, hey, I think you ought to change this a little bit. So we were appreciative of that to get some early feedback before we even started mass producing it, because it's so much easier to make changes at the beginning than to make changes after the fact. So that was another example that we could have started sales almost a year before we actually did. We could, because we kind of had a model. We could have made some. But we thought, hey, let's slow down still and make sure that we can make it right. And so that last year was really just fine tuning everything to get it right. And then right when we were getting production up and going, that's when COVID hit. And so the whole supply chain was dismantled. So that actually slowed us down some more. Nothing we could do about it, but it turned out to be a blessing because it slowed us down, so we had more time to figure out, hey, do we actually have the right unit or not? And it actually gave us the perfect excuse that other people would ask us, hey, when are you going to be out? And we could say, hey, it's still going to be 6 to 12 months out. They were totally fine with that because everybody else was late too. So COVID was like the perfect cover for us being a new business, that we were now just lumped in with everybody else. Nobody would question, hey, you guys don't know what you're doing. That's why you're late, which probably was partially true. But for them, all you had to say was COVID, and they'd say, okay.
No, 100%.
it's kind of nice to get that pass early on.
It's so good because it allows you guys to establish such a strong foundation. And like you said, the time you eventually started actually selling this at mass scale is such a perfect example of such a strong foundation, right?
Yep.
Because like you said, you guys focus so heavily. One, you in marketing terms, what you were doing there, you did market research and you did it really well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then second,
Yeah. Go ahead.
and then secondary to that, hard work in the beginning, like I want to make sure this is not just any product, but a product that is the perfect product. Not everything's perfect, but you guys hone in on it where it represents the brand in itself, right? There is the product, but you're selling more than just a product. You're selling the experience.
Yep. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We were trying to sell the idea that mixing concrete could be a lot easier and a lot faster. That was really what we were doing, is selling that idea. And then it just so happened this is the tool that you can use for that. But there was inherent skepticism at the beginning in the industry because it didn't look like other mixers out there. They would look at it and say, man, I don't think that's going to work. But that's where we could say, man, we've run thousands of bags through this. So it wasn't just that we think it's going to work. We know it's going to work because we've actually done it.
Yep.
So you're right. We were doing market research on somewhat of a limited scale, but just kept getting that feedback and kept improving it. So when we did start selling it, we were way more confident in our product.
Do you remember the day you guys, hey, we got the perfect mixer with everything in consideration based off all the trial and error. This is a unit. How was that first process of, it's time to sell?
Yeah. Yeah, it was very exciting that first time we had a prototype that was making good concrete, just dropped the bag in. I remember I wasn't on location when they were trying it, but they were videoing it for me. And so they were all super excited that, hey, this works, because we had tried so many different things and just really weren't sure, okay, what aspects of it do we change or not change to get it to work right. So that was super, just a big day. I think we were a little bit naive at that point, thinking, okay, yep, now we've got it. Now we're just ready to go. There are so many steps in the mass manufacturing process that we had never done before. I didn't have experience with that. So fortunately, we had a good partner that could explain that side to us, but that's just not a fast process. And so now I understand it better. So I wouldn't be surprised as we're coming out with new variations of the unit. I don't expect it to go fast, so I don't get uptight about it. It takes a long time to get it done.
How was that process, by the way? Start with seeking out the manufacturers and, establishing the blueprints and stuff like that. How is that process?
Yeah, that was a challenging process. I was fortunate that one of my business partners actually has a machine shop where the guys are in Texas. And so he and some of his employees there that are engineers were very helpful in the trial and error, testing things, and they could make something, try it out again. And so we could go through that loop. Then we were also blessed with a great manufacturing partner that we had gotten connected with. They were already manufacturing a lot at a particular manufacturer. So they had been in this business for 20 years, not necessarily making concrete mixers, but just fabricating things, because we would not have been able to figure this out on our own. We just didn't even know the questions to ask. So it was really good to work with them, and they had been through it before, and we could just go through it and say, okay, here's what we need to give them so that they can manufacture it, because we didn't even know what we were supposed to give them. And getting the drawings proved to be way more of a challenge than I ever would have guessed, because we had done so much trial and error that a lot of times we were just trying things, not necessarily changing the drawings. We were just changing it on the fly. So then we ended up with a mud mixture that worked, but we really didn't have the drawings for it. So we had to reverse engineer a little bit. And then when you got to the mass manufacturing, they have to make some changes, because what works for a prototype doesn't work for mass manufacturing. But then you got to make sure when they make that change for mass manufacturing that the mud mixer still works correctly. So it's a big loop that you just went round and round in. But we we definitely could not have done it without the key partners that had been there before. So I would encourage any entrepreneurs, small business owners out there, don't try to reinvent the wheel. Go find people that have done it before. And that's a lesson I've learned over my career is you're going to pay more to get somebody that's actually done it before, but it's going to save you money in the long run. So go ahead and bite that bullet because if they've actually done it before, they do know how to do it. They know the steps. And so you're going to get there a lot faster and a lot easier than if you just try to figure it out on your own.
They say it's easier to acquire a business that's existing versus building a business. And in this circumstances, I feel like it kind of falls into a gray area. Like it's building a brand new business, but like you said, with your experience and the networks established, it kind of falls in that gray area where it's kind of between like, okay, it's sort of established. Yes, it's harder work because it's still needing a foundation. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I would agree that we kind of fell in the middle. I mean, we were definitely starting a business from the ground up. We went all the way from the idea to selling a product, but we didn't create a manufacturing company. So we could have gone down that road and said, okay, we need to build our own manufacturing company and do this. Well, but we thought about that for a while, but then realized, man, we don't know what we're doing with that. So we wouldn't even know how do you hire the right people? How do you set up the shop and how do you have quality control standards? We didn't know how to do that. So we went with partners that said, okay, you guys are expert at manufacturing. Then I did have with Mark, a very talented salesperson. So I didn't feel I needed somebody to oversee the sales process because Mark was already with us. So he was an expert on that. And then we found you guys for the marketing because we didn't have the marketing in-house expertise. So we knew that, okay, we need somebody that's going to help us marketing and let the world know that we exist because we didn't know how to do that. Then we have decided that, hey, we're going to in-house have our customer support. So we could have said we're going to farm that out because there's lots of companies that do it. We felt though it's very important for our brand that we have internal customer support so that they can treat customers the way we want to treat them. And that has been proven invaluable for us, that even as we've had glitches in our product early on, the customers still were very forgiving of us because we talked to them on the phone. We said, we're going to fix it. We did fix it for them. We sent them a new unit if we had to. Customers would go from being frustrated that something broke to being our biggest fans by the end of the phone call. And that's because we were going to take care of them. So we had to pick and choose what areas are we comfortable farming out to another company and which ones are we not. So like I said, customer support, we said, hey, we're not going to farm that out. Marketing, we definitely do some marketing, but we definitely need the expertise out there. We can't do that. Manufacturing, hey, we're not going to build a manufacturing company. We're going to farm that out. So, but I agree with your premise. I think it is easier to buy an existing business and then simply improve the operations of it or improve the exposure of it to get more sales. I think that is a very valid way to go about it instead of just starting something from scratch, because there's lots of businesses out there that are not optimized. And so you can just find one of those, buy it, and then optimize it, and then you're gonna make some good money off that.
You kind of said something key there. You were talking about the customer support and how you're taking the customer support experience in-house, essentially. And I find that so valuable because, like, for example, in the long run, when you decide to sell the company, I think that's such a big asset involved with the company. Knowing this one guy specifically, he sold his call center for $21 million, just a call center. And essentially, like, the bigger Monmixer get, I believe Monmixer has so much more room to grow. And I see it being definitely extremely dominant in its area. So with that call center, which is the customer support, is super important because it's such a good addition, an add-on into the business operations. Most importantly, how you guys focus so heavily on support. And that's one thing when we analyzed and saw how engaged you guys are with your community. Because I worked with so many brands that you just don't see that. Or spoken to so many brands, and when we're auditing all their social medias, their operations, their customer supports, it's just some people are in it for a quick buck. They're not looking to make that impact and difference. where you guys are. You guys want continuous feedback. And I'm pretty confident in your internal leadership team. You guys are always discussing, and based on the conversations you and I had, you guys are always asking, how can we do better?
Oh,
How can we give more value?
yeah, this is personal for us. I mean, we are personally connected with customers out there. Some of our first customers we sold product to, a little over a year ago, when we go to trade shows, they will stop by the booth just because they want to talk to us again. So, and we love seeing them, and because they know that they bought one from us when nobody else had. So they kind of a special place in our heart for them. And I view customer support not as just an operating expense, but it is a value added opportunity for us to really serve the customers. So some companies will say, okay, yeah, we got to have limited customer support just because we're supposed to, but I'm going to make it so hard for a customer to talk to a live person, they're just going to give up. Yeah, they're going to get on the phone and they're going to be thrown from option to option to option, and then finally it's going to disconnect. And so that they'll just concede and say, okay, I just won't call. We did not want that experience with our customers. Our customers are blown away that somebody actually answers the phone. That is just so rare out there now in the product world, that somebody will answer the phone. And sometimes we even answer it on the weekend. And that just really throws them off when they call and then somebody answers the phone. So we just see that as an opportunity to really enhance our brand image and just to take care of the customers. I mean, they're part of the Mud Mixer family after they get one, and we're here. We're going to stand by our product, and we told you it was going to do something, and it's going to do that. And if something goes wrong, we're going to fix it. In fact, we got a message just the other day. Somebody was commenting how well they enjoyed working with one of our customer support people, and they said, hey, I broke something on my Mud Mixer because it was my fault. And yet Colin still took care of me and fixed it for me. And so that was just, the kind of experience we want to create, that even if it's something they did wrong, we still want to help them out.
That experience, that's like the differentiator of the Mud Mixer.
Yep.
You're not one and forgotten. You're remembered.
Yep.
I think it's so powerful that you guys do that. And we see that too, right? And people engaging. The fact that when we started working with one another, you guys were sending us all these testimonials essentially. And I asked, hey, like you guys are working with these guys? Like, no, they're just making these videos. It's
that really surprised us early on, that the customers would make videos and put it on YouTube or something, and we didn't even know who they were. That confirmed with us that, hey, this product is really needed. Because they're so excited about it, because it's just saving them so much time, and it's easier, that they just want to share it with people. So that's really been invaluable for us too, that customers are willing to share their experience with others. That gives a lot more confidence to potential customers that it's not just Mud Mixer doing the sales, but it's other customers that have already bought it that are saying, hey, this is great. Get it.
Right. I went on TikTok the other day. You type in Mud Mixer, everything, Mud Mixers, different people. And it's so good because it's just, once again, it's so confirming, right? For anyone looking to make an investment for the Mud Mixer. Very powerful. And the way what you guys have already developed, you can see it visually on the impact. And as a marketing person, this is the golden goose. It's a perfect brand. It's a brand here to stay. And once again, it's something that's actually impacting lives and making a difference, which is powerful. I want to touch base on, you had multiple businesses. Your business experience had helped a lot in the journey of getting something so powerful out there. What different ventures did you go into?
Yeah, I've done lots of ventures, and I don't know how many, but over a dozen. But sometimes when I look back, I can say, a third failed, a third succeeded, and a third, or maybe in the I don't know yet. And so I had definitely mix of success and failure. What I've found though is businesses are a lot more similar than they are different. So whether I have a business that is creating online education for actuaries or CFA candidates, that's closer to the Mud Mixer business than many people would think. Because at the end of the day, you're still trying to create a business that's going to provide a good product at a good value to the customer. You're going to provide good customer service, and you're going to innovate, and you're going to streamline your operations. So all of that is the same. And so I I learn a lot from my various businesses and then can even apply it to Mud Mixer. In fact, I coach a running team too. And even in coaching, I can apply those principles of, okay, how I coach my team is how I would coach people at the businesses. So even that crosses over quite a bit. Since I've had some failures, I don't naively go into things and just assume it's going to succeed. I think that was the case for me early on, that I just thought, hey, this sounds like a good idea to me, that it's obviously going to work. That wasn't the case. And so after you get burned a few times, you realize, hey, some things will make it, some things won't. And so you can be willing to take more risks in business because you're not just assuming it's going to work. And the failure doesn't define you. Maybe it's kind of analogous to baseball players. I don't play baseball at all, but I know their hitting percentage is probably somewhere between 300 and 400. So that means most of the time they go up to bat, they are not getting a hit. From a lot of people's perspective, you'd say, okay, you're failing then, if most of the time you don't even get a hit. But for them, they know, hey, if I just go up there enough times, I'm eventually going to get a hit. Well, it's the same thing true in business, that you'd be phenomenal if you batted above 500 on businesses, if you had more than 50% of your businesses succeed. So most people are well below 50%. But you just realize, hey, I've got to try enough different ones until I find the sweet spot that's going to work. You don't want to just give up just because you have a failure.
I'm reading this book called Man Up by Bedros. He started from nothing, has a $200 million business now, but he was talking about that concept. And he's like, look, I failed a lot, but then eventually ran into what succeeded. And if you want to succeed and you want to make it, you have to anticipate failure. And each failure comes with a gold nugget. And your experience with those failures, like, you took out what the most important lesson was, and then you're just applying it and compounding it.
Yeah, there's an old adage that says fail fast and fail often. Because that is where you learn the most. There's one business I was in, spent 2 years on it with a group of guys, and we created an insurance company and thought, hey, this is a home run. We created spreadsheets to show how many sales we were going to get and everything. We just thought it was a slam dunk business. But I think where we really missed the mark in that is we didn't do enough market research early on to find out, are people really going to buy this product? We had asked a few people, and they were kind of friendly people, and said, hey, would you buy this? And, oh yeah, sounds great. We should have gone to people that we didn't really know, that weren't just trying to be nice to us, because we went through all the trouble of creating this product and getting the stuff set up, and then found out nobody wanted to buy it. Even though we thought, hey, this is the right thing to do, this would actually be good for the state even, but it just wasn't good. So that was a lesson learned, I'd say, the hard way. And so I have not forgotten that, hey, any business I get into, I want to talk to some people first and say, hey, do you think this has potential or not? If we do that, and talk to people that are going to be more skeptical. I just think you need that honest feedback as you're in those early stages of starting a business. Don't just put your head down and keep working on it and then look up 2 years later and then find out, hey, that was a dumb idea. So we did that with the Mud Mixer for sure. Is every step along the way, we were showing it to people and getting their honest assessment.
I like that honest feedback. Like, I don't want a yes man. I want someone to tell me the truth, because it's, like you said, right? It's good to hear both sides. You need both sides of the story. Getting that market feedback is also about looking at two opposing sides, right? The people that don't see it versus the people that do.
Yeah, and you want that on your internal team too. You want people to feel the freedom to disagree and argue their point, and don't take it personal. You're debating an idea, because if you vigorously debate an idea, you're more likely to come up with a better idea at the end. And so we try to keep that open with our team, that anybody is free to share what they're thinking. You don't have to just pretend you like something if you don't.
No, 100%. I agree with that completely. When you first started your first venture, how was that process? Let's just say someone that's watching this video, they're brand new into e-com, or they're looking to build a brand and make an impact. Like, how was your first venture, and what was that Mike like versus the transformation, or what would you advise?
Yeah, I'd say I was very successful in my first venture. When I first went self-employed, I was in my late 20s, and I launched a business that was preparing people to pass actuarial exams. So I would write a study manual, and then I also did seminars. I didn't know much about starting a business. I just thought, hey, I like teaching, and I think this might be good. But One thing that made me think this was a good venture to go on was I would see online reviews about people going to these seminars to pass actuarial exams, and they would say how terrible it was. That the instructor wasn't very good, wasn't very helpful. In fact, someone would say, I went to the seminar and then after the first day, I just stayed in my hotel room and just studied on my own. But then they kept going back year after year. And so I said, man, this must be a good business, is if you can do really bad and then people keep paying you to do it. So I wonder what would happen if you were actually a good instructor and did it. So I was the blessed that I started with that, started out small, had people come, but then there was a change in the exam structure. I was in the right place at the right time. My business exploded. I was very focused on serving the customer. I wanted to teach in the best way possible. I answered all the email questions that came in. People called me on the phone. So it turned out into a very big success. And I would end up being the biggest instructor for those exams on the actuarial side. It's a real niche market, but I had created a name across the country that, hey, if you want to pass the exam, go to Mike's seminar. That's what it was all about. And then the Society of Actuaries actually got rid of the 2 exams that I was teaching like 6 or 7 years later. so they totally eliminated my business. But I had a good run. I learned a lot. I learned how important it was to do the right thing for customers and to do that. Now, along that way, then I started another business and said, hey, since I'm talking to all these actuarial students, they're asking me about getting jobs. Well, I might as well create a recruiting business so that I can get paid when they ask me about a job. I thought, hey, that's great synergy. But that business failed terribly because I really didn't like talking to the employers. I just didn't like talking to the corporations. I like talking to the students, but didn't want to talk to the employers. But you really need to do both if you're going to create a successful business. So that was a lesson for me too, that, hey, if you're going to start it, make sure it's something that you want to do, or that you're going to hire somebody that wants to do that. And so that was an abject, failure that I had kind of started it, but then I thought, okay, I really don't even want to do this. So just kind of shut it down. So that was 2, I'd say fairly early on businesses. One went well and one didn't go well. But I took those lessons with me, just how to really do the right thing for customers, go above and beyond, and then you build a good reputation.
And this was it after college?
This was after I graduated from college, and I worked for about 6 years at insurance companies. And then I went on my own. So I was in my late 20s when I started on my own there. So still fairly young, but definitely had 6 years experience in the corporate world, which I wouldn't trade for anything now. Even though I realized I didn't want to be in the corporate world forever, I learned a lot in 6 years. And so that's definitely helped me in all sorts of business activities, that I understand how corporations work. I understand income statements and balance sheets and all that. So that was very worth it to get that 6 years worth of experience.
It's like that mentorship, right? As you being sent off into the world to do an entrepreneurial duty.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah, I would think that would be hard for entrepreneurs that start right out of college. And I know there's some that are extremely successful when they do that. I think for me, I needed some just general work experience before I had the confidence to do it on my own. That was worthwhile for me. So I would encourage people to, even if you don't think you want to be in the corporate world or you want to be an entrepreneur, it's not a bad idea to go work in the corporate world for a bit. You're just putting in some time, but somebody's paying you to actually learn. And so go ahead and see it as a stepping stone. Don't think that I've got to start my own business right away. It's a sellout if I go work at a corporation. Just see it as a season in your life that you can do it for a bit, and then when you're ready, you can jump out.
I find people in that early phase, they have a very hard time doing that. They feel like they're stuck doing something, and they feel that they can't get out of it, right? They feel like they have to do this one thing versus opening themselves up to try and do different things. What would you advise for those type of people?
Yeah, I'd say that's very true. And the longer you stay in that one thing, the longer you're going to feel stuck in it. And I think for some people, they lack confidence to go try something else. because they say, hey, I'm good at this, and I'm afraid if I try something else, I won't be good at it. I'd say for others, they don't want to take a pay cut to go do something else. And so they say, hey, like for you, you're making decent money as a server. Well, if I go try something else, maybe I'm going to make less starting out. And I think you have to be willing to do that. You have to say, hey, I don't have to make more to go take a different job that I want to try out. I've got to be willing to go down first before I go back up. And so that's why people can do it when they're younger. I think it's easier.
Yeah.
A lot harder to do that after maybe you have a family and kids and a mortgage, and then, okay, now I want to go try something else. Well, you still have all those bills to pay.
Yeah.
So if you can experiment in your 20s, maybe before you have any of those responsibilities, that's a good thing. But I tell people when, coming out of college or even earlier in their 20s, do not take a job for the salary. So do not use that as the determinant that I'm going to take job A instead of job B because job A pays me $10,000 more a year. That's not what's important early in your career. What's important is to be able to figure out what you're passionate about, to be able to just get experience. You just want to get experience. Then you can worry about the income or focus more on the income when you're 5 to 10 years into your career. But don't do that at the beginning, because I do hear that from people that coming out of college. And I know when you're in college, you're not making any money, so you're wanting to go make money, and so they'll just jump at whatever job they think is going to pay them the most in that first year salary. But that is such a short-sighted view. That go ahead and live cheap while you can, like you did in college, or even if you didn't go to college, just keep living cheap, but get that experience, and then you can apply that later.
It's funny. I was actually at one point I was that person. I was very ambitious again, right? I would apply for like these 100K jobs titled, even though I was super unqualified. But then eventually, like, the ambitious got me into pitching someone to work for free on learning the skill, because then my mindset changed at that point in time. Like, you know what? It's not about the money. Why don't I give someone value and see what that comes out to be? Yeah. And it happened to be one of the best decisions I've made, because it was about learning more so than money. And then what you realize is the money then comes.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say that is true in business as well. That I've always tried to focus on my businesses, whether it's online education or it's the Mud Mixer or Red Dog, to focus on adding value for the customer. Don't worry about what your profits are this quarter or anything. If you just focus on doing the right thing for the customers and running your business the right way, being efficient, then the profits at the end of the day are simply a scorecard that tells you how you did. But if you only focus on the score, then you're not going to be focused on what's important in running your business. So you look at the score as just a grade report of how you did, but you don't just fixate on that, because there's lots of people that simply just want to fixate on how much money am I making this month or this quarter, and that's just not the right way to do it. Focus on your business, making that better, and the money comes after that.
You can't beat experience, right?
Yep.
You can't beat the experience. You have a great experience, you keep on working on that. I think everything works itself out. Mike, well, we're about that time. Thank you for this 1 hour.
Yep. We appreciate everything you're doing for Mud Mixer. You guys have definitely put us on the map for sure.
What a phenomenal journey that was. A testament to what is possible when passion meets perseverance. We hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the creation of an 8-figure business. We'd love to hear your thoughts about today's episode. Drop us a comment, share it with your network, and let's keep the conversation going. This is Brands of Impact, signing off until next time.